the bathroom floor, and a billion-dollar dream. The lights in San Francisco flickered above as Chris Gardner cradled his son on the bathroom floor of a train station. The tile was cold. The air was stale. And outside, the world rushed by, unaware that a man and his 14-month-old son were sleeping where others only stopped to relieve themselves. Chris held the door shut with one foot, fighting tears as little Christopher slept on his chest. He whispered stories about stars and rockets, not poverty, hunger, or the eviction notice that had landed them here. But that wasn't always his life. Chris once had a dream, not a wild dream, just one that seemed simple, to provide a good life for his son. He grew up without a father, in a home filled with violence and uncertainty. So when he became a dad, he swore that his son would never feel the pain he knew too well. In the beginning, he worked as a salesman selling medical bone density scanners, expensive equipment that hospitals rarely needed. The job barely paid, but Chris believed in it. He believed in himself, until the sales dried up, until his bank account ran dry, until his wife walked out, leaving him alone with their baby. Chris didn't blame her. Life was hard. She was tired. But he made a choice. He would raise their son himself, even if that meant walking through fire. The interview that changed everything. One day, standing outside a brokerage firm, Chris saw something that would alter his life forever. A man in a crisp suit stepped out of a red Ferrari. Chris approached him, bold, desperate, but still polite. "What do you do, and how do you do it?" The man smiled, told him he was a stockbroker, and that all it took was being good with numbers and people. Chris walked away with a dream burning in his chest, hotter than any hunger pang. He applied to every brokerage firm in the city. Most didn't respond. Some laughed. But Dean Witter Reynolds, a firm known for hiring underdogs, offered him an unpaid internship. Unpaid. He had no savings, no job, no car, no home. But he had hope. He took the internship anyway. The price of hope. Every morning he dropped off his son at daycare, ran to the office, worked like a machine, and studied at night. He made over 200 cold calls a day. He wore the same suit. Only suit to work. No one knew he was homeless. He cleaned himself and his son at public restrooms. He fed Christopher with whatever he could afford. Sometimes it was fast food, sometimes nothing. But Chris always made sure his son felt safe, even when they had to sleep in shelters, churches, or that grimy train station bathroom. He never begged. He never stole. He just worked. He believed. Others had degrees. Others had homes. Others had more time and less to lose. But Chris had something they didn't, a reason bigger than himself. He had a little boy watching. The test. At the end of 6 months, only one intern would be offered a job. One out of dozens. The night before the final evaluation, Chris and his son were kicked out of the shelter. They spent the entire night walking the streets. No sleep, just fear. The next morning, Chris arrived at the office with tired eyes, cracked lips, and determination carved into his face. He passed the test. He got the job. The beginning of a new chapter. With that job, everything began to change. Slowly, steadily, he saved every dollar, studied harder than ever, and built relationships with clients that trusted him not because he wore an expensive suit, but because he never gave up. Years later, Chris Gardner started his own brokerage firm, Gardner Rich & Co. He eventually sold part of it in a multi-million-dollar deal and became a self-made millionaire. But that wasn't the victory that meant the most. The real victory? His son, the one who slept on his chest in a train station, grew up never knowing the depth of the struggle they faced. He only remembered that his dad was always there. The legacy. Today, Chris Gardner is a philanthropist, speaker, and author. He travels the world helping others see that you can't let your circumstances define your life. He doesn't talk about money first. He talks about dignity, faith, and the moment when you decide that your life will not be dictated by your fears. In one interview, when asked how he made it through the worst nights, he said, "I had a dream, and I wasn't going to let anyone steal it. Not poverty, not rejection, not even homelessness, and definitely not fear." The message for us all. We often look at success and see the Ferrari, the suit, the smile, but behind every true success story is a bathroom floor, a night of doubt, a moment of decision. Chris Gardner's story reminds us, you don't need perfect conditions to chase greatness. You just need one reason to keep going and never let go. Because sometimes the strongest people are the ones who learned how to rise when the only place left to go was up.